Hello, everyone. How's it going? I'm GameFace Killa, and I'm back for another episode of Rollin' Solo digital board game adaptations. I love taking a look at those. Big board game fan, obviously, and we'll be taking a look at Gloomhaven, uh, this new Frosthaven puzzle that's out, Puzzle 3. I took a look at the other two if you want to check out. There's YouTube videos of those. Hey, Joe, how's it going? And so we'll be taking a look at that, and then of course we got a big surprise. I know all one of you has been waiting to go back to looking at some of the new updates and developments in the Gloomhaven Digital, and I wanted to wait until I had gotten past the point where I could only have three people in a party, so I was trying to do that off screen, and because I wanted to have the full party experience to show everybody the new updates and all the new features and everything. It was a kind of a bigger bite than I thought I was chewing off of. So it took me a while longer, but I finally did it. We've got four-player parties open, or four-character parties open, so we'll be taking a look at that. But first, I figured I'd go ahead and solve the puzzle, not solve it, but show you the solution to the puzzle for Puzzle 3. I didn't figure it out, I'll be completely honest if I don't. I kind of thought about this back and forth. I thought with 30 some puzzles, some of them are going to be really hard for me to see. I and so with 30 some puzzles out there, I'm not going to kill myself every week trying to think of at least one puzzle solution. So I'm just going to give up after so many days. I think what I was fixated on was doing this power leak to hit two creatures for 8 points of damage. It's not the only way to do big damage, and it's obviously not even used in this solution more than once. There are actually a couple of solutions. The one that Isaac used actually resulted in the character uh, losing all their cards by the end of it, but you do technically survive. But I found a solution online that kind of led me in the right direction and made me realize what I was doing wrong. One of the things I did was fixate too much on Power Leak, trying to use that all the time, and it really is impossible to use, especially at the beginning. I think I was starting to realize that using it at the beginning is pretty much impossible because of this elite guy here who will kill you as soon as you become poisoned. You're in killing range for him, even on a normal basic attack. So you really can't kill him right away. Within one turn, and so using Power Leak right off the bat is impossible. You can't do it to kill these. You could kill any regular or even these two regular guys up here, um, but you could not escape the elite killing you right after. So here's the solution. You don't use Power Leak at all the first round. What you use instead is, of course, you maximize probably the next biggest attack, which is with hit and run and temporal displacement. This is probably the next big combo that you could do. So I'm going to go with hit and run first because their initiative is 63. So no matter which card I play first, I'm going first, which is what I want. And so I'm going to start off with temporal displacement, and I'm going fast. So there goes my first time counter. And then I move two because I'm going fast, move up to in between these two up here, and then I get to attack two. And now, if I was slow, it would be -1 attack, but it's not. It's fast. I'll go ahead and put that in the discard. So I am going to attack the regular here, and the regular Ruin Machine. And that's the end of that card. Then I use the top of Hit and Run, and this actually, because I'm fast, I'm doing 3 attack. And you might be saying, oh no, there's only 1 hit point left, but that's okay because, well, you'll see. So that is the end of that card. Oh, and then the second half of the top is to move 2, and so I'm going to move back. Now, I kind of debated back and forth whether I wanted to stay within range of the elite in order to take the damage, but then I would be in a prime position to do a lot of damage the next round. And I think that was one of the things that I made a wrong assumption on, is when I know I can eat a little bit of damage, when do I do that? And I was thinking that could do it during turn 2, but in fact I need to do it later to make it work. So next, I'll be playing Power Leak and Kinetic Transfer. I'm definitely going to move fast again. So in actuality, I'm not even going to use my slow right off the bat. It's going to be I'm not going to use my slow till the very end if I can help it. I think this is the way. I think I'm doing this correctly. So I go first because once again um, they have a 42 initiative. I have 17, and so I am going to use the bottom half of kinetic transfer, and I'm going to move up right between these two guys. So I'm going to move. How far do I move? 4. 1, 2, 3. I think I don't think I need to worry about moving up another space. I'll just stay here. We'll see how that works. So I do 1 damage as part of the bottom half of this. All adjacent allies and enemies suffer 1 damage. I don't need to push anybody. I don't even have a counter to use to push anyway. So now at this point, I'm going to use Power Leak. Huh. This seems kind of weird. I also do 1 to the Elite Rune Machine, so they both have 1 damage on them. Oh, I know what my problem was. Sorry, everyone. I was wrong, and I need to move slow this round. This is the slow round. I was completely wrong. Okay, so I'm giving the Elite his hit point back, and now I'm okay. Now I'm moving slow, so I get a counter back. I thought there was a weird reason why it was messing things up. Okay, so now they go before me, and their sole move is they aren't moving; they're just attacking +2, immobilizing. But then the nice thing is that they're actually damaging themselves. So this guy's dead. The Elite takes 1, and then these other 2 take 1. Okay. So once again, instead of taking damage round 2, all I have to do is go slow, and I can go after them, and I avoid any damage. Once again, carrying over my soak, my little bit of soak that I have, to the last round. And so I'm going to now use kinetic transfer. I'm not going to be moving fast. I'm only going to be moving slow, so I can only move 3 spaces. So I'm going to go 1, 2. Actually, I'm only moving 2. And then I'm going to use Power Leak to do 4 damage. Pretty sure this is right. This is on the Ruin Machine here. So now at this point, I've discarded both cards, and we're at the start of round 3. Okay. So it doesn't really matter which additional card I use. As far as I remember. I just know that the enemies are moving 1 for regulars, and so I need to keep that in mind. So I need to move up 1 space, and you'll see why. So I'm playing Power Leak and Kinetic Transfer. So I'm doing Kinetic Transfer first, the bottom half, and I am going to be moving fast this time. And so what that does is that gives me the ability to move 4 all adjacent enemies and allies suffer 1 damage. So I'm just going to move up 1 space, and everybody takes 1 damage. And then I'm going to use the top half of Power Leak. Oh, I keep putting the cards over here. Sorry, I had to do a long rest, and I just got rid of hit and run. So then that puts temporal displacement stays in my discard. No, I would have drawn all 3 of these. Sheesh. Okay, kinetic transfer goes to my discard because I finished using that. I'm not going to push any enemies or anything like that. I just did 1 damage to them. That's all I needed to do. Now I'm using Power Leak, which does targets 2, poisons myself, of course. Got to remember that. And then I do 4 damage to both of these guys, killing them both, taking them off the board. Now, this is the other part that Joe actually helped me figure this out. Is that, is it possible that you could take damage and let the last one kill you or hit you? I am going to take 4 damage from the explosion, but first he's going to get to move up and attack me, which this was the thing that was also very difficult for me figuring out how to make this happen. And the only way that it can happen is if you don't take any damage earlier on in the turn in the previous 2 rounds. So what ends up happening is he's going to move 1 and attack 1. Yeah. So he moves up 1 and attacks 1. Okay, no big deal. I still have 1 card in my hand, 2 in my discard pile. But now actually I take 2. Sorry, because of the poison. So now the big problem is he's going to explode for 4 points of damage. And so I just discard the card out of my hand, and then he dies. I still have 2 cards in my discard pile. So technically I am still alive. The only thing I could do next round is a long rest, but I am still alive. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. So I didn't figure out this puzzle. I kind of had to give up. I spent at least 2 or 3 hours on it, I'm sure, and thinking about it off and on in between then. It's a good puzzle. I didn't think completely about the fact I need to stop getting tempted by big damage cards. Those are usually distractors or something, um, something not that just aren't going to be as useful as you might think. And then I also didn't consider the fact that I needed to spend some time, um, when to take the rest. I needed to maybe even let one of the guys hit me, and if it was going to blow itself up, then if I could find a way to soak the damage, and then of course figure out when I would be soaking the damage. Um, so that's it for that. So we have a new update that just came out for Gloomhaven. I just noticed right now because I'm downloading it. I wish I would have check that beforehand, but that's okay. We'll just take a little break and talk about the update. I'm going to share. Let's see if I can blow this up. Share the new stuff that's going on. They're glad to announce a new update is now available for Gloomhaven. It's a minor update which preceded the arrival of some very important content that we'll be happy to reveal in the coming months. I'm hoping that means co-op. But we'll see. I think it should mean something big. I think the only big thing in their roadmap seems to be co-op, but I think they're trying to get a bunch of extra stuff out. Um, among other things, there's an addition of a new Spellweaver Archivist skin. So that's cool. So you got a new skin you can play with the Spellweaver. The Brute skin that you can play with is pretty cool too. And of course, all these are released for all players based on community events that they're staging. And then there's actually a new character that is based on an unlockable character from the main game. Now, I won't be playing that character just to avoid spoilers to myself. I have not unlocked it in the regular game. I'm hoping to unlock it eventually, but right now it's not unlocked for me, so I don't really want to spoil it. And so I won't be playing with that character, but there's still 2 new characters to take a look at. There's some new cards, it looks like, in this update that have come out for the Mind Thief. 2 new cards. I'm assuming those are high level cards. There's quite a few high level cards that I think aren't in the game still, but that's okay. You don't really absolutely need to get to the upper levels to do what's available on adventure mode right now. Looks like you can load custom levels as mods from Steam Workshop. That's kind of cool. They're really supporting the mod community. Um, there's a perk to ignore negative item effects, which I have been waiting for because the brute is basically powerless without armor, and I don't want to put any -1 cards in. So I'm hoping that goes with the brute, especially. He'll be really powerful if I can get some damn armor on him. I'm one of those people that if it adds negative things to the modifier deck, then I'm never going to get it. Doesn't matter how good it is. So hopefully that's going to help make him a lot more powerful. The camera has a better focus on the action. That's cool. And then expanded level editor functionalities. Okay. Um, I guess they have an update about health and they're working at home and remotely. Updates are a little bit slower, but they're still taking account. We've taken into account your desire to be able to play multiplayer during the difficult period. Although we're still working on it digitally, here's an exclusive sneak peek of the multiplayer mode. Cool. So they have a video sneak peek of it. Sounds pretty awesome. but they're still getting that ready. But I have a feeling that's probably coming up soon. That they're working pretty hard on that. Okay, so I'm going to switch my capture over to Gloomhaven, and we'll get started. There's probably going to be quite a few new things that you're going to enjoy taking a look at before we even get to starting with our playthrough. But there is so much stuff that's cool to look at. It does take a little while to load too. There is one thing I'm hoping that they've fixed, in particular with the Tinkerer interface. It is really annoying. Um, it has to do with not being able to select short rest because the AI kind of, or the interface kind of stretches off screen. But that's just a little thing. You can still do it. You just have to change your resolution on your screen and then switch it back. It's kind of annoying, but we'll get there. Um, just want to make sure there aren't any new settings. There's definitely a lot that's available already. As far as graphic options, the graphics are amazing, especially if you have a computer that can run really well. Um, really look really look nice. Um, there aren't really any, there's just a few options as far as controls and audio, things like that. But I'm sure that'll get more abundant and packed with goodies once it gets closer. The how to play, if I've shown this before, but it's basically a quick instruction guide in kind of manual format. And this is what they had to kind of teach you the game. We did a look at that already when I did a preview of it earlier, but that's still available for people who want to kind of read through the instructions. But what they have that's even better is they now have a tutorial mission that you can play. And I'm excited. I decided to go ahead and wait and play it until I could stream it. So I've never seen it before, so we'll pretend we're complete noobs going in and playing the tutorial just to see how well it teaches us how to play. There's also a new level editor, which I'm assuming this is what they have. Open the modded version of the game. Okay, so you have to have a modded version of the game to create levels. I don't even know I, what that's going to be like. That's going to be crazy. Um, but that's going to be cool for modders to get on, and then people can download the modded levels and play those. Multiplayer still grayed out. Sad. It'll be here soon, I'm sure. Then you, of course, the main mode is right now is adventure mode, where you create a random part. It can be random, or you can set up a party of adventurers, and then you just go through a map, a campaign map, and have a somewhat detailed campaign. It's nowhere near as detailed as the real campaign, but it'll be the regular campaign will be released soon. But the adventure mode is always nice as a way to kind of jump in and do some quick build-ups of characters and that kind of thing. It's definitely a lot of fun, especially now that they've added things like perks and um, card enhancements, things like that. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the tutorial to start off with. It was supposed to be an easy job. Track the bandits to their lair, sneak inside, grab any loot, and get out sharpish. It's unclear exactly when it all went wrong. Perhaps it was the Cragheart smashing the entrance open loudly with his fists, or the brute ramming a bandit guard's face into the wall to stifle his attempt at alerting others. Split up from the Cragheart after fighting through hordes of bandits, the brute finds his way into a disused storeroom and hunkers down, trying to get his breath back. Suddenly, the wall at the other end of the room swings open. Well, 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 what do we have here then? It looks like the brute is going to have to fight his way out of here. In Gloomhaven, the first thing you do each round is pick 2 ability cards for your characters to use on their turn. Since the brute needs to get across the room to deal with this bandit guard, you'll need to select a card that at least lets you move or lets you move at least 4 hexes, right? Because there's 4 hexes between me and him, and a card that lets you attack the guard and try to take his guard down. Or take him down. Sorry, can't read. You can look through your cards by mousing over them on the list on the left, and of course, you'll see them pop up. each card. Let's see. Provoking Roar and Grab and Go are the only ones you currently have available, but they should get the job done nicely. So I've got to pick these two. The others that are grayed out, I can look at them, but as you can see, they're shadowed over. They have a little bit of mist on them, which means I've used them this round already or previous rounds, and I can't use them until I rest. Okay, so I'll just note that the first card you select will also set your initiative, and then you can change it just by clicking on the number if you want to select the other card, if you want to have a different initiative. The lower the number, the faster the character will act. So we're going to choose Provoking Roar to go first, but I think we have to click Continue first. So you see, selecting Provoking Roar kind of gives it a little bit of a glow that lets a brighter glow that lets us know that's our leading card. And there's also a change up here on the Brute's interface on the top that shows you that he is going to have an initiative of 10 right now. So if I select Grab and Go, that's my second card. You'll notice it doesn't have the glow. I could select it on a normal game. I can select Grab and Go if I want to go in a later initiative, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to select in selection. So I pick my selection. Now what you'll do is you'll see the enemy draw their card, and this is basically going to let you know what they're doing this turn. So this guy is shielding and retaliating, but thankfully it's not happening until after me because he's got a 15 initiative. So I got to get to him and hit him before he can shield himself up and block damage. So the idea is manipulating initiative to try to beat them sometimes, try to go after them sometimes. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do. Each half of the card that you have from the ones you picked is comprised of one or more abilities. You get 2 actions per turn, and when basically you get to decide, no matter which card you picked or what order you picked the cards, the order that you actually use them and whether you use the top of one card or the bottom of the other, that's totally up to you. But once you've picked the bottom or the top of one card, and you can do top or bottom in any order, then you have to use the opposite side of the other card for your second action. So if you pick top of one card, you got to pick bottom of the other. And so that's something to remember as you're picking cards. Okay, so we can either do top hat, and the cool thing that I like is that it automatically highlights the opposite for you, so you can see, oh, if I choose this, this is my combination I'm getting. If I choose this, that's the combination I'm getting. All right. Now, as the bandit guard on the other side of the room, as the bandit guard is on the other side of the room, let's choose the bottom half of Grab and Go. Yeah, we do need to do this because this is going to let us move 4 hexes. So we're going to, okay, we have to continue first. Now I have to select the bottom half. So now you'll notice that changes I guess I can't, okay, if I zoom out enough, we got a little bit more of a top-down view. It changes to show you the available move spots that you have, and you can select any one you want. You can even select individual waypoints. So you could go 1, and then you can do 2, and then you can do, whoop, move the hex. Oh, okay, so I guess here so you can select individual waypoints if you want, but right now for the tutorial, it just wants me to select the 4 spaces that I can move to get right next to him, which I need to do for my attack because he's a melee guy. So confirm movement, you always have to confirm. There is a lot of confirmation buttons, and sometimes it gets a little frustrating having to hit them all, but they make sense. I mean, you got to make sure that sometimes I also catch myself about to do something that I definitely didn't want to do. So the confirmation buttons definitely are in the right place, I think. Do you see how Grab and Go has become all gray and smoky? This is to show you that it has been discarded. So it'll either be smoky if it's discarded or burning if it's been burned, which means you can't use it again if it's been burned. If it's smoked, you can heal and possibly get it back in your hand. The Brute is up close and personal with the Bandit Guard now, so it's time to give him a taste of steel. Hit him with the top half of Provoking Roar. Okay, so I select that. Now, you always have to select the enemy you're going to hit. You'll notice there's orange hexes surrounding you, which I could definitely hit anything else. If I didn't want to hit this guy and there was another option, I can hit him. The other thing that it shows you, which is really awesome in the user interface, or I'm sorry, in the heads-up display above the enemy, is that it shows you that the attack is about to do 2 damage. Now, that's if you draw a modifier of 0. So it always shows you what your attack is going to be if everything's normal, no modifiers. But of course, in Gloomhaven, that doesn't happen. You always have modifiers. And so it could be either better, a bigger attack than 2, or a worse attack than 2. The other thing you see is that white hand on the purple background. What that lets you know is, as you can see up here, that matches my Provoking Roar's disarm up here. And so that's letting me know, hey, you're going to disarm this guy as well as hit him for 2 hit points. So it kind of gives you a feedback on what you're going to, a little bit of heads up on what you're about to do. So once you select the guy, you'll notice his hex brightened up a lot. You can always clear it if you want to select someone else. I guess I can't in the tutorial, but you can in the normal game. So if you accidentally make a mistake selecting someone, then you can clear it. But now I'm going to confirm the target. If I do want to attack them, I have to click confirm. He's going to attack. Now you'll notice what's popped up above his head is the modifier. So in the physical game, you have a physical modifier deck, which is genius because it's much cooler than rolling dice, because you'll see why as we go through the playthrough of the adventure mode. But in this game, the randomness of the game is determined by the modifier deck. So every time you attack, you draw from it. Some cards are positive, and you can see here on the right, whenever I hold my cursor over the brute, you can see the modifier deck composition. Every dot you see all the different range of modifiers. So the circle with the slash through it is a miss, auto miss. Then you have everything from a -2 to a 0, +1, 2, +2, and ×2. And the dots below each of those numbers tell you how many of those cards you have in your deck, in your modifier deck. And obviously, another way of thinking of it is, what are the chances of me drawing that card? You can see that the -1, negative, and the 0, -1 and the 0, and until I drew it, the +1 have the most chance of being drawn, right? So I can kind of, it's random, but you still can kind of predict a little bit, which is really cool. And you can always hover over yourself to remind yourself of what your modifier deck is currently, because once you use a modifier, it's discarded, it's put in a discard pile, and you don't get it back, uh, reshuffled back in until you either draw a miss card or a ×2 card, and that reshuffles your deck. Okay, so we have dealt +1, which means my attack is going to do 3, which is enough to kill him. So he is going to die. Yeah, and you can also hover over the cross swords over here on the left to look at your attack modifier deck. So you can either hover over yourself, or if you want to see it a little bit more zoomed in, you can select the swords, the cross swords over here, and see that we drew. You'll notice that if you look really closely, it might be hard to see on the screen, but the +1 now has a dot missing. And you can see the little shadow of a dot. So you can even see what's in your discard pile by just looking at the missing dots. The pips are on there if they're still in your modifying deck, and they're missing if they've been drawn. And basically all this stuff is what I said already. If you draw a ×2, which is a miss, or ×0, which is a miss, or ×2, then in either case, your deck is then reshuffled, your modifier deck. By the way, do you see the gold on the floor for that bandit left behind? To pick it up, you need to perform a loot action. These can appear on some of your ability cards with a number indicating the radius around you. So if I loot 1, it's going to loot my space and everything 1 space away. If it's a loot 2, then obviously everything 2 space away, and so on. If a player character ends their turn on a chest or pile of gold, they get to loot it for free. Now you notice this game is really weird. You have to literally end your whole turn on top of gold to be able to get it, or a treasure chest. Otherwise, you won't get it. Perhaps I'll get some gold if I escape out of. Perhaps you will get some gold out of this escapade after all, if these bandits don't kill you first. One last thing before moving on to the next round. Throughout this tutorial, you'll notice that the camera moves to focus on the action. You too can move the camera around using the controls. You can use WASD, Q and E, rotate it left and right, and of course the mouse wheel zooms in and out. And if you zoom out far enough, you can basically play a top-down miniatures game, just like real life. You can also rotate the camera by dragging the mouse with the middle mouse button. Yeah, that's how I usually do it. Nothing left to do now but end the brute's turn and go on the next round. So you do have to end your turn by clicking end turn every time. Now I got to get out of here. The brute is looking a little worse for wear, and with no monsters in the current room, now's a good time to rest and get some energy back, or rather some cards. So you'll notice that your life force is, you do have hit points. Um, I think I'm full on health. Oh, I only have one health. Not good. But then I also, another resource that I have to watch is my number of cards that I have, which is basically my endurance to get through a dungeon. During ability card selection, if you have at least 2 discarded cards, which I have 5, because you can see all these are shadowed, um, you may perform either a long rest or a short rest to recover them. So note that you do have to have at least 2 cards in your discard to be able to do that. All of the Brute's ability cards are currently discarded, and long rest doesn't count as a card. It's just an action you can take in order to get your cards back and also heal yourself. There's some other benefits to it as well. All of the Brute's ability cards are currently discarded, and so he'll have to do one of those kinds of rests. You can pick a short rest or a long rest. A short rest burns one of your discarded cards, but it's randomly drawn, so it may be something that you don't want to lose, but you'll lose it for the rest of the scenario. Not permanently, just for the rest of that dungeon scenario. But you recover everything else, and then you go on. So you'll notice that you have kind of a ticking clock with your card hand, right? You're going to slowly lose cards until you have nothing left. So you have to try to complete the dungeon quickly, but then you also have to gauge when's the best time to play powerful cards that you will burn right away. So you can definitely burn through your deck in a way that you control, which is really cool. But short rests are nice because you actually don't stop your turns. You can get all your cards back and keep going. That's the nice thing about it. A long rest takes up your whole turn for that round. You have to go at initiative 99, which means you'll always go after everyone else, or at least all the enemies. And if you can't choose what card to burn, you not only get to, oh, sorry, if you do a long rest, you get to choose which card to burn, and which is nice. You get to actually choose which one you want to burn, and so you can figure out which one's best. And then the other benefit is you get to heal too. And sometimes it's nice to go initiative 99, because you don't want to, you know, you're ahead of everybody else and you just are waiting for them or something like that. So it's a way of keeping you from losing cards while you're waiting for other characters to finish doing whatever they're doing in the room. Doing a long rest, however, if you're by yourself, is a risky move. But since there's no enemies, we're going to go ahead and long rest. Okay. Time to choose a card to lose, which is never an easy choice. So it skipped right to me, initiative 99, because I'm the only one in here. But now I have to choose my card that I'm going to lose, and they want me to choose Leaping Cleave. And so when you select it, you've got to verify, do you want to burn Leaping Cleave or do you want to choose a different card? I'm going to go ahead and burn it. And you'll notice I also healed 2 hit points right there. You'll see that blue glow that denotes healing for all characters. Round 3. One of the most important tactical moments is when you're exploring dungeons. Of course, any Gloomhaven player knows this, is when you're going to open the doors. And as you can see, what's really cool is when you're playing the game, you can actually look ahead. Kind of in the physical game, you get this ability too. You know how many rooms technically the dungeon is going to be. So that kind of helps you figure out your plan for your endurance. You say to yourself, okay, I hope I don't burn more than 1 card per room because I'm going to run out of cards then by the time I get to the 3rd room. So you can kind of plan things out. But the trick is when do I open this door to the next room? When you open a door, all enemies in the next room are immediately added to the initiative track and their ability cards are drawn, and you get to finish your turn, but then they may go right after. If you have multiple characters even, it's possible they could go after you're finished. With that in mind, you want to make sure that you look carefully through the cards that are available and see what your options are if you use this opportunity to charge into the room. You can hold down the Alt key and look at all your cards at the same time, which is kind of nice. You can see the initiatives and then also the different attack and move options and see which one's best for you. And then while you're in this mode, you can also select which card you want to use, I think. You may have to switch back to this mode to select cards, but in this scenario, we're going to choose Spare Dagger, which is going to give me a range attack. It's the Brute's only range attack, pretty much. And then Grab and Go. So I'm going to be moving fast, and I have the option of doing range, which is nice. Okay, so Spare Dagger, Grab and Go. Okay, so now we start our turn. You select the bottom half of grab and go. Let's see what's on the other side of the doorway. Now, I'm only going to use 2 movement points to get into this doorway, and so I will still be able to finish my move once the room is open and I see what's in there, which is kind of a nice advantage. Okay. What a surprise. More bad guys. Before doing anything else, let's check out what these enemies are doing this turn. We can hover over the enemy or hover over the portraits. So we're going to look at the bandit guard. These guys are moving 1 and attacking 3. But he's only going to move 1 hex. So as long as I stay 2 hexes away from him, I should be okay. That's a big attack. And I only think I have 1 hit point. Now that we know that the enemy's up to, what's the... Okay, and the bandit archer is attacking 3. He can hit anything within range 5. So probably what I want to do is, if you think about it, I want to move up and attack the archer and stay out of range of this big guy. And hopefully I will... Well, actually, I can hit him from far away. I have to hit him from far away. So now we got to figure out, okay, how do I finish the turn now? The best bet is going to be to get out of the brute's range and also getting as close to the archer as possible. She doesn't have a move this turn, so if we move the brute next to her, she'll have... Oh, okay, so yeah, if we look at her card, we notice that she's only attacking and she's not moving, and if you do try to do a range attack next to an enemy, they'll get a disadvantage, which means she has to draw 2 modifier cards from her own deck and apply the worst one. The bandit guard will be in range to be hit by the spare... Oh, so then I'm going to shoot at the bandit guard for the top half of... Because if I will also be at disadvantage if I try to shoot at the archer. So I'm going to run up to the archer, giving her disadvantage, and then I'm going to shoot my range attack at the bandit guard. This plan should minimize the amount of damage the brute takes, although I'm still going to take some damage from the archer, probably. But we'll see. She is rolling at disadvantage. Okay, so I'm going to move 2 to move next to her. I do have to confirm it. I can also click the hex again if I want to. So I click the hex or I double click really fast. Then it'll kind of go through a lot faster. So don't think you have to click the button every time. You can actually double click the hex to make it do something a little bit faster. Now, one of the things you'll notice is under spare dagger, it'll probably mention this later, so maybe I shouldn't talk about it. I am doing an attack 3, and you'll notice that the range says 3, which means it has to be within range 3 to hit it. But once I select it, you'll notice that the orange hexes pop up to show everything in range again. Now, I could attack the archer, but you can see it's got a blinking cross swords icon on a purple background. That means that I'm going to be at disadvantage, which means I draw 2 cards from my modifier deck and pick the worst of the 2. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to instead... Obviously, you can see that I just do a normal attack against the guard, and it's doing 3 damage. Let's throw the spare dagger at him. Okay, so I select the the guard, and you'll notice that the hex is highlighted. I can either click confirm or I can click the hex again, and I'm going to do that this time just to show you. Oh, look at that! So I drew a modifier ×2, my 1 ×2 in my deck, and you'll notice it's gone now. There's no pip there. So I just did 6 damage of him. So normally my attack is 3, but at ×2, it's a 6. And so I completely killed him. Now you'll notice my ×2 modifier. Oh, and that would have been discarded because I probably would have drawn something worse. That's one of the reasons why you want to avoid a disadvantage is if you draw your ×2, it's going to get lost because everything is worse than a ×2. Yeah, so you always want to minimize that. So that definitely killed him. And then he'll die and leave a pile of loot. The loot becomes different as you level up. It starts off with 2 gold at level 1, and then it gets higher and higher. Okay, so now I have to end the brute's turn, and unfortunately, the archer is going to go and still do his attack, but it's at disadvantage. You'll see it'll draw 2 modifier cards, a -1 and a +2. And that would have been bad because if it had drawn the +2, it would have been 5 damage and I would have died. Oh, it looks like they gave me 4 hit points. That's good. Yeah, you can see on the bar it's got little ticks on it based on to show you how many hit points you have. Okay. Um, you have to be careful though when you're fighting ranged guys. If they do have a movement though, which we got lucky this time, the bandit did not. But if they did have movement, they would actually move away to avoid disadvantage before attacking you. So it's smart enough to know to move away from you. But thankfully, I only took 2 damage. Now, what I have to do when I take damage is I have to. Yeah, I have to decide between taking the damage, so I can take 1 hit, and you'll see it's highlighting my hit point bar, and it's showing what it would be after it's taken away. Or I can always burn one of my cards that I have available in my hand, or 2 cards that I have in my discard pile. That's how you can take damage. Every time you take damage, you can either take a wound, burn a card that's in your hand, or burn 2 discarded cards that are in your discard pile. Why would you ever choose a card in your hand or a discard? Well, you have to once you run low on hit points, and then if you're worried about taking damage in a more dangerous way later, or there could be many reasons why you might strategically decide to do one of the other options. But 99% of the time, you're probably just going to take damage until you run out, and then you have to discard cards. Okay, so now the archer is the only thing left. We're going to try to go before the archer, which that's hard to do. Although provoking war and sweeping blow, provoking roar gives me a pretty low initiative. Sometimes the archers can beat it, so I'm going to select those 2, and we're going to do a surprise. Apparently, looks like the archer's planning to move and then attack if she gets her turn. So she's going to move 2, and she can attack up to range 4, and she's going to attack 2. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Provoking Roar's disarming attack first. So the nice thing is that will cancel her ability to attack. A disarm is an effect that basically takes away the enemy can do everything but attack. That's the one thing so she could still move, but she can't attack. So even if you don't do any damage, sometimes those disarms are still nice to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click it because it's possible it could do 2 damage if I get a modifier of 0. I'm going to confirm +1, so I did 3 damage, and she's disarmed. As you can see, there's an icon above her now until she takes her turn, finishes her turn. Now I've got to select the bottom half. I'm going to move 3 and push 1, all adjacent enemies. So push means I push them away from me, 1 hex, and I can do that with all adjacent enemies. It looks like they want me to move up here. I don't need to move, but I can. Okay. So now I'm going to move. Now you'll notice one thing that happened is I didn't move my full 3. So if you want to stop your move before your full move is done, and you'll notice I can move 1 more space, and it's highlighting which spaces I can move to, I can always just skip that. And then it skips the movement and goes to the next ability, which is a push. And so I have to select who I'm going to push. It has to be someone adjacent to me, and I'm going to select the archer. And you'll notice there's a little trap right here, a bear trap, and I can since the bear trap is 1 space away from me, that is a legal hex that I can move, and you'll see all the legal hexes right here. The reason why I can't push her right next to me is because obviously she hasn't moved away from me, and so this will move her away from me and onto a trap, which will kill her. And then you can either double click to confirm or just click twice. He yelled at her, and she got pushed back into a trap and died. All right, we're going to check out the next room, but the brute doesn't have any cards remaining, so I'm in a long rest again. And at this point, I get to select cards, although in the tutorial they'll tell you which card. Provoking Roar is going to be the card we're going to get rid of because the bottom half is no use to us right now, and the top half is basically the same as what's on other cards. Notice that as his pool is diminishing, if a character ends their turn with fewer than 2 playable cards and doesn't have at least 2 discarded cards in their discard pile, you'll be exhausted. So eventually you're going to run out of cards. You don't have enough to play 2 in your hand, and you don't have enough in your discard. You have to have at least 2 to be able to rest. You'll be exhausted, and that's how you actually lose the scenario, not by losing all your health points, which is technically impossible. So we're going to lose Provoking Roar. and you do confirm to burn it. I mean, it's not technically impossible to lose all your hit points. It's just that you'll lose all your cards before you lose all your hit points. Unless you choose to. Because you can, I have done that before. I've actually choose to lose all my hit points, which I wasn't paying attention and accidentally killed me, and I still had cards left I could have discarded. Okay, so we're going to go through the next door, which is the last room. Same tactics as last time. I'm going to go through. It's always a great idea to go through with Spare Dagger for range and Grab and Go for great movement. And of course, you can go later, which I like. You have the option of going later in 87, but that usually means that when you come into the room, everybody's going to go after you. But at least with Spare Dagger, especially if you're in a party, going early is not necessarily a bad thing either, because the likelihood that there's going to be multiple enemies that are going to go is going to be pretty low. So I'm going to use Grab and Go to move into the door. And you'll notice I still have 3 movement left. So you see all the hexes I could move into. Ooh, there's a treasure chest. 3 bandit guards too. Whew. And they're full health. Oh, who is that in the corner? Cragheart. He's just in rough shape. He's got like 2 hit points maybe. More so than usual. With him back in the party, we can swiftly dispatch these bandits without issue. Looks like he's going to be up next, so we'll finish our turn. If I move over the guards, I can see they're doing a move to attack to. We have to be really careful how we're moving across the room. It's a big room. We don't have a lot of big movement besides Grab and Go. So it looks like they want us to get the brute over towards the Cragheart and attack the closest bandit guard while we're at it. Okay, so it's moving us over right next to one of them. And remember, you have to think about the fact that I can't attack this guy because I'll be at disadvantage, but I think there's some other guys. Maybe it's trying to teach me something. I know what you're thinking. Spare Dagger is a range attack. See, I was just thinking that. I'm not going to be able to range attack anybody. So if disadvantage attack is not a good move, there's a new ability that you can choose instead. Basically, you see these 2 buttons. One of them looks like a sword. One of them looks like a little foot to denote movement. If you don't like the ability that's on the top half of a card, you can always choose a default attack, which is a little button below the big button on the top half of the card. And that is just a default 2 attack, which is probably smarter because, yes, the attack is bigger with the Spare Dagger, but if I attack a guy next to me, I'm going to have a disadvantaged attack. So we're going to use the default button. I'm going to select that, which is the little icon. Oh, first I got to continue because it's a tutorial. You won't have the continue button in the regular game. It's just on the tutorial. So now you'll see in confirming, I can attack the guy next to me for a base of 2, which just means if I drew a 0 for a modifier. And now I'll confirm by clicking twice. Ooh, got a little. Oh, I think it froze it. I only drew a +0 this time, but because I did do a range attack, at least it's not a disadvantage. So it's only going to do 2 damage, the base damage. But as you remember, if you look at the modifier deck pile, it's likely that I'm either going to draw a 0 or a -1 at this point, more so than any other type of cards. They're more likely to come out. All right, Cragheart's going. He's already has some cards selected for the turn, so let's see how he can best use them. It'd be great if we could move up next to the pair of bandit guards and hit them both with Avalanche, but we can't reach them because we can only move 2 on the other half of the card. That sucks. However, if you look at his inventory, which is always listed here with these buttons, you can see that he's wearing Boots of Striding that grants him +2 extra hexes of range for a single move. So we're going to use those. I guess okay, so I'm going to select Rumbling Advance, and then it'll automatically. This is one of the things I love about this game, because in the physical game, I'm always forgetting to use items at times. And so you'll notice that it'll pop up here and says, "Hey, you have something that can increase your movement because you can't reach them right now. How about you select these boots and go farther? Excuse me." So we'll go +2, and now you'll see my Oh, I have to go to the inventory. Now, in the regular game, you can just select this icon here and it'll automatically use them. But I guess here I have to select my inventory and it'll automatically use them. And now you'll see my range of movement has increased. So I can move here, speeding over. And now, oh, at the end of this, all adjacent allies and enemies suffer a damage, and I generate or I infuse earth as an element that can be later used to burn to augment abilities. So 1 damage, boom, nice splinters. Many ability card actions are comprised of multiple abilities and effects. They always play out in order from top to bottom. So you'll notice that I did the move to, augmented by the boots, and then all allies and enemies suffered a damage. Sometimes you'll see abilities that are flipped, where sometimes you might immobilize first and then move. So you always got to remember that you're going to do them in order from top to bottom. And then obviously at the very end of that, I infused Earth, which is getting created. Now the reason why it's being created and it's not available is because a hero or a character can never use an element that they created on their turn, but it can be used right after that on the very next person's turn. What are infusions? If you look on the right hand side of the screen, you can see it's created or it's creating. It's being infused into the battlefield, which means other people can spend it. It's like a combo ability, which is really awesome if you can get them to work correctly. They're sometimes really tough to pull off. At the end of this character's turn, it'll be available this round and next round. So it does wane and slowly kind of dissolve over 2 turns. So you've got to use it within 2 turns. Back to the action now. Let's hit those bandits with Avalanche. So Avalanche is a top half effect that's denoted by the hex pattern. So the gray hex means this is where you're standing, your character standing, and then the 2 red hexes denote where you're going to hit the target. So you'll notice if you look at the pattern that's on the board, I am in that pattern to be able to maximize that effect. And you can rotate it around. So it doesn't matter where you're facing or where the enemies are or where it is on the card. You can rotate it anywhere as long as you're lining up 2 enemies that you're adjacent to and that are adjacent to each other. And then I just can auto select them. They're the only 2 enemies that are within range. Okay, and you'll notice it's blinking 4 because that's a default 4 attack. It's going to kill them even if as long as I draw at least a 0 modifier. Okay, so one of them had a ×2, so it had 8 damage, and then the other guy only took, or I drew a -2, so it only did 2 damage, or maybe it was 3 damage. I don't know. That hit hard. So you'll notice now that this card on the bottom with Avalanche is now burning. So that means, and you'll see that there was a burning icon in the lower part of the top half. What that means is when you use that card, it's gone for the rest of the scenario. And so I've decreased the amount of cards I have by 1 permanently. So you got to know when to use those cards because you don't want to use all your burn abilities. They are very powerful, but you'll exhaust your deck a lot faster. All right, Craghart's turn is going to earn. Craghart's turn is going to end, and we're going to go to the Bandit Guards. Oh, so he's going to take 2 damage, which is more than he had, or it's equal to him, and so he's going to have to decide. At this point, if he takes the 2 damage, you'll notice that it's turned to red here. This means that you are going to kill this character if you take that damage yourself. It also helps you by putting a gray or a red wash around the borders to let you know you're on death's door here. Or another option is that you can burn 1 available card from your hand, which these are all the lit ones. Or you can, if you have them available, you could burn 2 discarded cards. So you'll see this is grayed out, and the reason why that is because I only have 1 card that is in my discard pile. The other card down here is in red, and you can see if you hover over it, it's burned. It's already gone from the game. For this round, for this scenario. So I can't burn 2 discarded cards because I only have 1. So I have to burn a card out of my hand, and it's letting me pick. I think I'll get rid of the ranged attack because I don't think I'll need to do that here. Oh, I'm going to select burn available card first, and it wants me to choose Crushing Grasp, which is a different card than I would have picked, but then I verify that. And now you'll notice that turned into a burn card too, and my available cards that I have left are dwindling. Oof, so I have to take the damage, and I also have to burn a card. Oh, I'm going to take the damage, yeah, because he has plenty. He's got 5 hit points. He can take the damage. But if the next round, if he gets hit, he's going to have to burn a card. Let's see. So he doesn't have enough cards left to take a turn. If I take a long rest, that means the enemy is going to go and possibly attack me. So I'm going to lose a card that way. So what's better to do is to click short rest, because that way I lose a random card, which sucks, and I don't get to heal, but I do get to still go this round. So I'm going to select short rest. It's going to ask me if I'm sure, and then it's going to draw a random card. I don't necessarily want to lose Spare Dagger, because I might need to do an attack on the bottom with it, which is a pretty awesome ability. They're very rare. Once I short rest, I can opt to redraw the random card. Oh, okay, so when I do a short rest, it comes up, and this is what the card is that was randomly drawn. I can go ahead and burn that to confirm it, or I can redraw a different card than this. If I drew something that I really like and I want to keep, I have the option one time to redraw a different card than this, but I have to take a damage. And the only other card that's available is Grab and Go. So I don't know that I want to lose. Oh, I do. Scary though it may seem to do so with the Brute only having 2 health left. Let's redraw. Whew. All right, so I guess I'll burn Grab and Go. And I took a damage, so now I'm down to like a lot fewer hit points. 1 hit point. Now that the Brute has enough cards to take a turn, we're going to select Spare Dagger first. That's not a very low initiative card. Ugh, I hope I'm going to go first. All right, so Spare Dagger, Sweeping Blow. Now you'll notice that I have a second circle up here. I've got to pick the Cragheart's cards too. So I'm going to select Cragheart. First, I got to continue on the tutorial. Select this. Now I got to pick his cards. I want to make sure and go as early as possible, so I know I have to use Explosive Punch. And then I got to select Crater because it's going to be a good ranged hit. Okay. So the Bandit Guard is going to be moving 1 and attacking 2 and then strengthening itself. So strengthen is like giving yourself an advantage on the next attack. So instead of drawing 2 cards and picking the worst, you're going to draw 2 cards and pick the best, which is awesome. But not for them. I want it. Thankfully, also, the initiative is 55, so I'm going to get to do both of my characters' turns before they get to go. So I'm hoping I'll do some big damage here. I'm going to do Sweeping Blow, which is a 2 attack, and you'll notice it's an AoE attack. I can hit 3 guys that are standing next to each other, as long as I'm also adjacent to all 3 of them. But there's only 1 guy here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. By default, I'm only going to be doing 2 damage, not the full 3. But remember, I've got this Spare Dagger bottom half I can use too as a second attack option, which is pretty rare for a lot of characters to have an attack on the bottom. But I didn't need it because I drew a +2. Now, what you have to do sometimes when you kill them when you weren't expecting to, you got to assess the battlefield and try to figure out what you're going to do. Now, you'll notice that the bottom half also has a default action button that's smaller than the bigger button, but it's just a basic move of 2. But I am going to pick that because instead of attacking, I can move over here and get this treasure, confirm the movement, and because my turn is ending on top of a treasure chest, I can open it. Ooh, I got a healing potion. So later on, I can... Ooh, and a Warhammer. Nice. You can't use items right away. You have to wait until in between missions to be able to equip them, which sucks. So Explosive Punch gives a low initiative, but it doesn't really offer any other help because I'm not going to need to destroy obstacles. There aren't any really on the board, at least not anywhere nearby. Crater has a strong range attack, but I need to make sure that I move away as far as possible so that I'm not at a disadvantage. So I'm going to go ahead and move first. and it wants me to move here so I can get the gold, skip the rest of my movement. And the cool thing is, because I infused Earth last round, you'll see it's waning. It's halfway used over here. But because I infused it last round, I can now use it to help make my crater attack even better. And you'll see why. Even if you miss on the modifiers, you still get to do... we're going to do a push 2 and push this guy into a trap, just like we did with the Brute. So I'm going to do consume Earth. But first you want to make sure that you... consume the earth first. So anytime you have a consume element ability, you want to make sure that you select it before you select the card, and then select the card, top half of the card, and you'll notice it's glowing now. So I'm definitely going to use it. Selecting the enemy. So even if he doesn't take 3 damage, I'm still going to push him into the trap and he'll die. Oh no, I drew my time 0, which means it's a miss automatically, but I do still get to do the push. So you could still have a benefit even if your attack misses. So I'm going to push him back, and the trap is auto hit. It doesn't need to draw an attack modifier, and that's the end of this round. And you'll notice I gathered the gold because of the fact that I was on top of it at the end of my turn. Otherwise, all that other rest of that gold in the dungeon you don't get, which sucks, but that's the way the game goes. You have to gather it all before the ending of the last round, or the whatever, you complete the objective, which is usually killing the last enemy. And then once that happens at the end of the round, no one else can pick up any gold or anything else like that. Whew. So the tutorial is pretty thorough. It does a pretty good job, I would say, going from... I mean, obviously, if you get this early access now, you have to... The only other option besides the tutorial is to jump into an adventure, and then you pick 2 characters to run, which I'm glad they kind of brought in that second character to teach you how to do that, so you know how to switch back and forth between them when you're selecting abilities and things like that. When you do get the early access, you would have to adventure with 2 heroes only, and then once you've gone around and killed the first boss, then you unlock 3 heroes. So this is what took me so long to get back to being able to play this game, was that I only had 2 heroes, which I'd streamed. Then I killed the first boss and I had access to 3, but I didn't really want to waste time and play with only 3 heroes. I wanted to do the full complement of heroes. So I went and did that off screen, finally finished, because to go from 3 heroes to 4 heroes, you have to kill the second boss, not the first boss, a second time. That's what I thought at first, but you have to actually kill the second boss out of the 2 bosses, and that one is a lot harder to beat. And you'll see that it's a challenge. So we're going to go ahead and do a new adventure now that I have 4 characters available. It takes a little bit to unlock all full characters for the full game experience. So if you do get the early access, keep that in mind. I think it's just going to be something that's going to be there for adventure mode to give you a little bit of to work for. And then, so now at this point, you can decide to play difficulty whenever you start a new adventure. You can play normal, hard, or insane. Um, and each one has different abilities. But at least the nice thing is that with normal, I always think it's a pretty good adventure, and a lot of times pretty challenging. Um, there's less enemies. Heroes start the scenario with +2 blesses. So not only do you have the ×2, but you also have 2 blesses in your deck, which is another ×2. That's normally put in by spending your money in town. Adventure pathways are all easy difficulty, and then heroes have 25% more health uh, than they would normally. Hard mode, heroes only have the 25% more health. They don't have the blesses, and they don't have adventure pathways that are easy. And there's normal set of enemies. If you're playing on the sane, the adventure pathways are set to hard difficulty, and you don't have extra health. So yeah, that's the difference. I'm going to play normal just so we can kind of see it without a whole lot of time constraints. And as you can see, the first thing you got to do is assemble your party. We have the Brute, who is the star of our tutorial mode. The cool thing about the Brute, is that you can choose a default skin or the alt skin for the Brute, which is pretty cool. And so that's pretty cool. That's been unlocked because of a community event where I think you had to kill so many, like hundreds of thousands of enemies with the Brute. It was crazy. It says his ability or his features are that he employs great size and strength to earn a living by wielding his huge sword and impressive shield for those who pay the most. So remember, you're playing a party of mercenaries in this game, so you're not exactly completely kind-hearted if you don't want to be. And then you can take a look at his starting cards, and you'll notice that all of the cards are leveled 1, and you also, let's see, does it say where? I'm trying to figure out. He does start with 10 health, and then he also starts with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards in his starting hand. But you'll notice if you scroll down enough, you'll see these cards down here, and there's an extra 3 cards that are labeled X. And so what that means is that when you play the first scenario, I highly recommend just using the level 1 cards. But in between scenarios, you can always switch out with X cards, any of the level 1 cards or any cards that you have available in your pool, but you're still limited to 10 cards. So what's cool is it gives you a lot of versatility if you don't like, for example, to be, if you want to be if you want to have skewer and attack multiple enemies, there's some cards that are great for that. If you want to have big movement, balance measure might be a really cool, or a big attack every once in a while. Balance measure might be a good card to try out. And then, of course, Wall of Doom makes you a huge defensive shield at some point in the game. And so every character has a set number of cards, a set health, and 3 X cards that you can swap in and out as you decide the kind of playstyle that you like to be. So the Brute is great as a melee guy. He's defensive, um, size and strength. That's key to him, right? I'm going to kind of go through each one of these really quick. The Scoundrel has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards. Not as many cards, but she has some huge damage, basically. She has only 8 health, so she's a little bit weaker in terms of being able to withstand damage, but she's usually, behind enemies' backs instead of in front of them. So you don't really have to worry a whole lot about those options. All right. Next, we had the Cragheart, which we also saw featured in the tutorial at the end. He is they're Savas. That's the name of the creature's race. They're usually the ones that are exiled because they can't master any certain element. They're incapable of it, or maybe they don't choose to or want to. And so what happens then is that the Craghearts have their core, which you can see here, this big rift in the middle of his chest. It's shattered to mark them for life, and they become sort of like Ronin, wandering and becoming mercenaries. They're big and brutal also, but then they're a little bit more about healing and status effects and manipulating things on the board as well, like obstacles. The Tinkerer is a new creature or a new character that just got added. I think I don't think he was the last one that was added. So they had 4 characters in the original, 3 of whom we've looked at, and then the Spellweaver, which we'll look at in just a second. But the Tinkerer is a pretty new character, one of the 2 new characters that were added since I was last here. And of course, there's a lot of really cool things about the Tinkerer. He's probably one of the best classes. He does also have, I think, 12 cards. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then of course the 3X cards. So he has a huge number of cards that he gets to take on the every scenario. So he has a huge amount of versatility. He's a healer. He does AoE attacks. He does status effects, depending on how you want to load him out. They're experts in crafting all manner of gadgets, elixirs, using tools to brave the wilds, hoping to uncover ancient curiosities. So they're kind of like Indiana Jones explorers for sure. And so definitely going to be taking that guy because he is a new character. Uh, the next character is not new. Spellweavers are orchid sages. So the orchid is the race of sort of crystalline creatures who are spellweavers. They're big range and they're literally made of glass. So they're glass cannons. They're able to draw forth natural forces and craft them into concentrated attacks. She only has 6 health, and she only has a total of, I think, 8 cards. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 cards, and then the 3x cards you can sub in. Very probably the smallest amount of cards in a pool, but there's some really cool things that kind of actually give her a lot more than that, even though it's deceiving at first. Oh, Joe, the items in the game, I don't know. I've seen a lot of new items, and then there's a rotation of like items I see regularly. So I don't know. I definitely haven't gotten high enough level to see everything, I'm sure. But there are quite a few of items, and they're adding more all the time. She also has a different skin. I don't think I've seen this yet. Oh, cool. So she's got a little bit more of a piratey alchemist kind of look here. That's cool. A little bit more melodramatic. So we'll definitely. That's her other skin. Oh, and the scoundrel also. I think she was the first one to get another skin. She's pretty cool. So it's got a really cool effect on her as well. All right, so that was the spell weaver. Let's take her off. Take her off. Okay, last one to look at is the mind thief. He has 6 hit points. He only has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 cards, and then the 3x cards. Has a really low hit point level, just like the Spellweaver. He is kind of a cross between the Scoundrel, who does sneak attacks. He does a lot of melee attacks, but he could also be built out. Could also be built out to do range attacks as well. She also does these weird mind control things that she can really power up and become really powerful. She also has augments, which are basically like auras that she puts on herself, and they modify whether she's going to do status effects when she attacks, or extra damage, or healing. I mean, she can kind of multitask lots of different things that are available. This was the newest character that's been, well, not the newest character, but of the 6, this was the newest of the original core set characters that was added, and we haven't taken a look at her yet. So I will definitely be adding her as well. And so now there is one more character, but you have to decide whether or not you want to see the character. So what happens is, as you say, when you click it, it says, "Do you want to reveal the mercenary?" Of course, I'm going to select no. I don't want to see this character yet. So there is another character that you could play on adventure mode, if you don't care about spoiling it. But I do care about spoiling it right now, so I definitely don't want to check it out just yet. But at some point, there are going to be characters that I have unlocked, um, that we can check out it once they become available. You'll notice there's a huge slot. There's all these other boxes that just haven't been unlocked yet by them. I'm hoping that they'll have some more coming up. But I'll wait to unlock this one, whatever the Upside Down Triforce is. We'll wait on that. So I am going to be taking some characters that I have had in my party before. Now, the Tinkerer is kind of a range guy. The Mind Thief is kind of a range guy. They're both pretty. I mean, the Tinkerer is kind of a mid guy as far as health points, but definitely the Mind Thief is lower. So I need to have a big guy, probably either Cragheart or Brute, and I think I'm going to choose. This is tough. I think I'm going to choose Brute, and here's why. I haven't got to see what Brute is like in the game with the new perk, to be able to remove negative status effects of items, and so I want to test that out for sure. So I'm going to take the Brute. Now at this point, I've got 2 melee guys. Oops, I think I accidentally selected Cragheart. I don't know why. So now we got the Mind Thief. Okay, so I've got Tinkerer, Mind Thief, Brute, and at this point I've got 2 melee guys that can kind of handle the field in terms of melee. I could either do the Spellweaver or another uh, another key high damage dealer. I definitely want to pick another high damage dealer. The problem is that if I pick the Scoundrel, I may have kind of a crowded field as far as melee attackers. Hmm. But the other thing is that I haven't really seen the scoundrel a lot in play. Um, so it kind of sucks to not check her out a little bit more. So I think I'm gonna play with her, and I'm gonna use her. I'm gonna use everybody's default skins. I think it's just these two that have them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got the brute, Joe. I know. I know. I know. I know you wouldn't want to go without him. Um, I do think the Cragheart is okay. I just he's kind of a slog sometimes. He doesn't move too fast, and he's not really much of a tank. And so I think I'm going to stick with this group here that I have. And of course, you can also enter your party name. Um, so, I mean, come on, they're the Game Face Killers. That looks better. All right. And so that's our 4 party members that we're going to have. It'll be pretty exciting. And once you've got your party picked, and remember, if you get this early access build, you're only going to have the availability of 2 heroes. You have to unlock the ability to have 3, and then by beating the first boss in adventure mode, which we're about to start, and then you have to beat the second boss in the adventure mode. There's 3 bosses in a row. You have to beat the second one in order to unlock all 4 characters. And it does take a little while. So if you're really excited about playing with 4, and I don't know what they're going to do with multiplayer. So if you are excited about playing multiplayer, you might want to get get the early access build and get started going through and beating the bosses. Hey, Kata, um, or ex Kata, sorry. So how do you get the skins? Everybody gets the skins once you get the early access because of the community events that were passed by the players. Um, everybody gets the skins, which is really cool. Uh, and so all you have to do is get the game. And I think they're going to have more community events that will unlock alternate skins for the others. And then I think eventually what's going to happen is that'll be like a microtransaction element that hopefully will stay superficial. I don't see how it could be anything but superficial. Um, just some kind of looks. I think they might have some that are purchasable, but then they've got these free ones right now with early access. I don't know if they'll be available with a regular game, but I don't see why they wouldn't have them available. All right, so we're ready to kind of start and take a look at um, what happens when you start it. Now, the adventure mode is kind of basic. They kind of have a basic map here. It's definitely not going to be anything like what the real campaign map is going to look like and all the features of the campaign because there's so much that's going to be available. Adventure mode is definitely a very pared down experience. Right now, I think they're just trying to play test everything and balance everything. Um, and so I think it does a really good job of um, showing you everything that is the coolest stuff about the game for the most part, but you are missing still some of the experience that really kind of makes it a full experience. So don't if you kind of feel like it's a little bit lighter, um, which I don't think you'll feel that way once you start getting into the tactics of the of the scenarios. But if you feel like there is some elements missing, then I guarantee you that you're going to start to see more stuff crop up eventually. And they're adding new stuff to adventure mode all the time too to make it a little bit fuller experience. But there's a lot in here, even though it's still in early access. While drinking at the Wayward Inn, you overhear snippets of conversation between 2 town militia. Apparently, a local bandit commander has come into possession of a number of heretical texts and has been researching necromancy. Eesh. I'm also hoping that maybe they'll have different scenarios for adventure mode, which will be cool. You're well aware that magical research often requires a handy supply of gold, and after asking around, you discover the hideout's whereabouts. Okay, so I know the Ashenbound Retreat is where I need to go when I'm ready to take out this bandit who's doing some necromancy. Obviously, you are unprepared to assault his base just yet, so the best thing to do first is to go out and explore the land, raid some local crypts, look for some knowledge and better equipment and money. So when you start the adventure, you'll see your characters on the side here, the panel on the side. You can, at any time, select the card hand of any character and then swap out any X cards that you want. I'm going to use the base cards for a little bit just to show everybody what they are, how they kind of work. And so you can do that. The other button, like the cross swords, the perks let you basically, as you level up, you're going to get perks, and you decide how you're going to spend or what they're going to spend on, what you're going to spend them on. But most of the time, they have some kind of effect on your modifier deck. So it's kind of like a just like if you're playing Fallout with perks, they give you a little bit of a cool ability that modifies your modifier deck. Sometimes you'll also get other cool abilities. Mostly right now in adventure mode, they're mostly focused on the combat, but in some of the perks, you can also get other things, like, for example, Fortitude, which I'm looking forward to playing the Brute with. You can ignore negative item effects on cards, on item cards, because usually if you try to gear up in armor, it makes you put a bunch of -1s in your modifier deck, and I hate that. So this perk, which I'll probably be buying really early, not only gives you a +1 card in your modifier deck, so it gives you an extra pip for +1s, it increases your chance for +1s then. It also gives you the ability to basically wear any armor and not worry about it adding negative cards or slowing you down. It's a cool way that they've integrated the idea of armor in the game, that if anybody else wears armor, they can. It just is going to have a huge effect on your modifier deck. You're going to have a lot of -1s added. All right, so and you can always see the XP bar, any items you can click on, check out. Of course, I have nothing. I'm nobody. I have a starting gold of 120. I think if you click on Wayward, yeah. So I could go and buy some. You're going to get 30 gold for each character. And you have the ability, all I did was click on the town. You have the ability to go into the town that you start in and buy some starting weapons and items. Weapons are not really important in this game. So if you don't have a weapon when you leave town, that's okay. So the cured hide here, it looks like it's an armor store. And you'll notice if you hover over an armor, for example, hide armor, it does give you a nice shield boost for a couple of attacks. But if you look at the left here, it also adds 2 -1s to my modifier deck, which sucks. I don't want that yet. I can buy some boots of striding, which gives me, like you saw in the tutorial, boots of striding give you some extra movement, which is nice. Or I can buy some winged shoes that give me the ability to add jump to one of my movements. So jump lets you leap over enemies or obstacles to get somewhere that seems impossible to get to. Um, and then if I go to the general store, I've got a lot more choices. It looks like I can buy chainmail, which adds 3 -1s, but adds more shield protection. Looks like there's some more hide armor. Now the shield is nice because that gives me an automatic shield 1 for an attack against me, which help every shield you have in an attack negates 1 damage. But you'll notice that on the bottom right hand side of the card, it says it's an exhausted ability. So what that means is you'll tap it, which is why you see the little clockwise arrow there. You'll tap it, and then you won't get it back unless you do a long rest. Then it comes back into play. Now, I do think with the Brute, the shield is definitely, yeah, I definitely think that he needs to have a shield because he's going to be our big tank. And then you'll notice once you buy something, you'll have to actually go to your inventory and put it in your hand by selecting the item in the correct character space, and then you'll select what you wanted, which is the shield. And now you'll see this is glowing to denote that I have something in my hand. I can actually put one other thing in my hand because the shield only takes one of my hands. I could get a poison dagger, for example, which is a nice weapon that adds poison. Poison increases damage that you give to enemies once an enemy has been poisoned. I could take some potions. Now I have spent 20 for the shield, so I kind of want to keep it even between them. I could get a Warhammer, but again, which adds stun to 1 attack during a scenario, which is pretty powerful. Stun is a hugely powerful effect, but unfortunately, It's 30 gold, and I don't want to overspend on any of the peeps here. I think what I'm going to do is spend 10. I'm not going to get hide armor. I'll wait for some better armor, and then by that time, I hope I'm leveled up so I can get rid of that negative effect. I'm thinking about getting a stamina potion, which lets me recover a discarded card, a power potion, which gives me additional attack, or a healing potion. Healing probably is the best for the brute. He's probably going to be taking a lot of hits, and he doesn't usually lose all of his cards. So stamina potions help you keep from going out of the game because of your card losses. He doesn't really have that problem, so I'm going to buy a healing potion instead. So you'll notice that this starting gold is kind of the first time that you're going to get some choices, right? And how you want to load out your people, and you're kind of deciding what kind of role they're going to play in your party. What's really cool is that there's not really like a D&D adventure. There's not really a set class for everyone. So, for example, if the brute is going to be my tank, he will tank quite a bit and take the damage, but he doesn't have to be the only. He doesn't have to necessarily protect from everyone, and he can still do a little bit of little bit of versatility in his role as well. Okay, so the scoundrel's next. She's going to do big time damage. Hey, thanks for the subscribe, Excata. Um, he's going to do big time damage, or she's going to do big time damage. So I want to make sure that this is always tough with her because I do want to have her do a lot of damage, but there's not really a lot of great selection of weapons. She could do poison dagger. That's kind of cool because she's, kind of a in the dark kind of thief. So we'll do that and make her a little bit shady. So we'll select the hand, put the poison dagger in it. Oops. Back to the general store. All right. So she spent 20 gold on, and she only has 10 left also. So we're pretty much looking at a potion. She can get her discarded cards back, do extra attack. I think she's got to do extra attack since she's going to be setting up some big attacks. So we'll buy the power potion for her, which at any time during any attack, I can drink that potion and it'll add +1 damage to the attack. And what's really cool is if you do attack multiple characters or enemies, you can actually have the power potion take effect for all of those attacks if you're doing an AoE attack. Okay, so she spent her 30. The Tinkerer. This is tough. This is tough. I do like buying cloaks of invisibility especially for my healers because they can get up close and not have to worry about getting attacked. The invisibility lets you, when you go invisible, you can't be seen or attacked by any enemies for 1 round until the end of your next round, next action. So we'll see. I'm gonna buy 1 cloak, and I'm gonna see if it. Okay, so I do have the ability. Some items when you buy them at the shop, they'll go away. I think it's keeping track the same way that the physical game has only a limited amount of uh, items. So I'm going to put one of the cloaks on the Tinkerer. And then I like the idea of the Tinkerer getting some cards back so that the healer, the Tinkerer is going to be my main healer. And so the Tinkerer is going to possibly get some cards back that might be useful to keep the healing going. And so that'll be my second purchase. You'll notice I'm not buying any weapons for most of the characters. I can always buy weapons later, but weapons are not. You sort of have like a default set of weapons with your character cards. They have their own weapons, so these are just kind of modified or kind of like a extra supplemental weapons. They really just add extra things like poison or the warhammer will stun. There's not even really a lot of options for items either. But you don't have to worry about spending and filling all the slots anyway. You don't have enough money, first of all, and second of all, that's one of the things to work toward as you're doing these, going out. Like before we can take on the bandit, we've got to get some money. We've got to buy some items, load out our characters. Mind Thief is going to take the other cloak of invisibility. and you'll notice it's putting a symbol by each character. So at any time, you can look at all the items that you have, and you can see who's wearing what. And you'll notice I'm starting to wear money out here. I only have 10 left, and I've sold out of the cloak of invisibility. I think there are only 2 in the physical game, and so maybe they're limiting it the same way in this digital version, which makes sense. You don't want to have the balance of the game thrown off. Um, so what is he going to do? He could do a power potion as well. Seems like a smart idea. He's also limited in cards, so or she is. I keep calling the mind thief he, but I think it's a she. Um, I mean, let's keep the damage going. Yeah, let's do the damage. So we got a power potion for the mind thief also, and it should be sold out as well. But I guess it's not. Maybe there's more available than just 2 copies in the physical game. I can't remember. Okay, so I've spent all my money. Definitely one thing you want to do right away is spend all your money. I wouldn't hold on to it unless you have a really good reason or something you're saving up for. Um, Otherwise, I'd spend it all, especially at the beginning. You really need to give yourself some items so that you can have a little bit of an advantage. I often feel like the game is a little harder at the beginning in the level 1 because you're so close to dying at first. And then as you're learning your cards, it can also be difficult, cause you to get closer to death a lot of times. The other thing that you can do in towns, and you can do this in any town location, um, you can enhance your cards. So enhancements let you modify your actual cards you have in your hand to make them even better, which is amazing. It's so cool that they added this really early on because this is what I think one of the best things is about the game. You're putting little stickers on the cards to enhance them and make them better. But in the digital version, you get to enhance them and make them better. And you spend money to do this. So you're going to need some pretty good money, but what's nice about it is you can look at your cards ahead of time or anytime, and you can see what kind of abilities you could possibly add. Like, for example, if I do Overwhelming Assault, it's a 6 attack already, which is amazing, but I can add even more damage to it. I can add poison to it. I can add wounds. So it's pretty amazing the things you can do with enhancements. Again, you'll notice these are very expensive, and they're going to get even more expensive the higher the level of the card is. So don't worry so much at the beginning about ever, being able to afford these. You're going to have to do some missions and get the money for it. And then obviously you not only will you need money just for individual abilities, but you have every single card that you use that can be possibly enhanced in some way, which is pretty crazy. So that's something for future. Um, Another thing that you can build up, which is really cool. So far we've got our characters loaded out, we're ready to go, and then when you're ready, you can just leave. And then your options are when you're actually in the game itself, you have to decide whether you're going to pick. You usually have 2 or 3 routes that you have to pick, and then the nice thing is they color code the routes based on the difficulty. So you're going to start off with some pretty easy scenarios to beat. It's also going to tell you in the right hand panel that pops up for each path not only how easy it is, but how many scenarios you're going to have to do to get to the path. So you'll actually have multiple dungeons that you might run in between the start of your journey and the destination. And you'll notice I can go to a burn tavern, Mistfell Copse, or the marches. Looks like a little camp. And depending on which one you pick, it's going to give you different gold rewards, different XP rewards, tell you how many scenarios there are. It looks like each one of these has one scenario and different amounts of gold. So that's about the only. Oh, and then some of these give items. One of them gives a helm, one of them gives a night blade, and one of them gives a minor healing potion. I want to see what this night blade is, so I think I'm going to pick that. But yeah, Night Joe, I'm getting ready to head out to here. So this is kind of where I wanted to stop for tonight. I know it sucks not being able to do an actual mission, but this will get us set up so we can just jump right in and do some missions, and you can see how the adventure mode works, uh, going through these scenarios and then getting what happens when you get to the destination. You're going to pick other scenarios, and then eventually we'll be leveled up enough to go in and face the Bandit Commander, who's our first boss. And so that'll be where we'll go next time. I don't think we'll quite get to the first boss next time. We'll probably want to level up till maybe around level 3, I'm thinking. But we'll go around and definitely get some money hopefully be able to get some more items, and then also maybe start looking at the enhancements as well. So, all right, well, that's it for me tonight. Don't forget, you can always check our my other show that I'm on with a group of great friends. We play board games every Saturday at midnight Central Time on Table Flipping Games. I think it is in the uh, show notes, and then I also have these YouTube videos uploaded, and so on YouTube, and so you can go to YouTube and see those. There's information about how to watch our other show on there too. Table Flipping Games on Saturday. We're playing Imperial Assault right now, which is really cool. Star Wars, Dungeon Runner, and then I'll be back here next Tuesday playing some more Gloomhaven Digital. All right, see you guys later. Night.